people telling other people that they can't paint or draw, don't be ridiculous, you're not creative, all of those things. And then we go through secondary school and we're kind of crushed into this little ball and bound up with all sorts of ropes that kind of we come out the other end thinking we should be this person. This is what society is expecting of us. Yeah. And so what I do in a room with people is to really get them to play. So they drop all of that baggage so that they find out what their story is and what makes them, what were they doing when they were 8 years old that gave them that thrill.
Hello and welcome to the Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Locke, professional speaker, magician and confidence coach. And quite simply, Unlocked is a journal of self-improvement. I'm talking to the experts, authors and successful people from around the world, as well as sharing my mishaps and magical adventures in my own life too, to unlock the best version of ourselves. My aim is to give you some insight and inspiration so you can unlock the best version of yourself too. Now, if this sounds like your cup of tea, then hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my latest episodes released every Wednesday. Now, relax and enjoy the show. Welcome to this week's episode. This week, I am joined with the wonderful Jackie Goddard. Jackie's a former fashion designer, a recovering actor, a coach, a speaker, and podcast host, but she's on a mission to get people excited about stepping in front of their audience. Now, whether that is potential clients, customers, or maybe it's just people who want to share their message with the world, she's helping people raise their confidence and realize that they actually have stories and experiences that can help others. So Jackie was a perfect guest to come on. We've got some great mutual connections and also some fantastic similarities actually in some of the things that we do. And I just thought she'd be a great guest to come on the show to start sharing these ideas about how can we increase people's confidence about stepping in front of an audience. So without further ado, enjoy this episode with the wonderful Jackie Goddard. Today, I am joined with the wonderful Jackie Goddard, a former fashion designer, recovering actor, coach, speaker, and podcast host. And Jackie's on a mission to help speakers get excited about sharing their ideas and messages with an audience, whether it's for their business, to educate, or to entertain. Welcome to the show, Jackie Goddard. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Yeah. Buzzing.
Good.
Great to be here.
And that's because you come off a holiday, isn't it, really?
I know. It's not just you, Ricky, but yeah.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. Well, Jackie, it's a pleasure to have you on here. I'm looking forward to this because we've known each other for some while now, but there's some real parallels about what we both do outside of this podcast and our mission really to help people, and would love to discuss more. But from that brief introduction, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and who are you, Jackie?
Well, as you said, I am on a mission to get people excited about stepping in front of their audience, and their audience being their potential clients, customers, the people that they want to share their message with. And as we were talking about just before you hit record, people are petrified of speaking in public sometimes. Not everybody. Some people, it does come quite naturally. But the majority, and I think it was Seinfeld or could have been Mark Twain, I've heard it said by both, that people would rather be in the coffin at a funeral than actually speaking the eulogy. Yeah. So people are more afraid of speaking in public than they are of dying, which to me is just incredible. Yeah. And so it's my mission really just to help people to raise their confidence, to make them realize that they have a message and a story that needs to be shared, because we all have a story that and experiences that can help other people. So it's not just about standing on a stage in front of a camera on a Zoom call and just kind of go, well, this is me, this is what I've done, aren't I great? It's really about sharing those stories that they have learnt from that then will benefit other people. So it's kind of a knock-on effect as I help them to help other people. And in order to do that, I need to get them excited about sharing the fantastic message that ultimately they do have to share.
Yeah, ultimately, and it's a really important thing because both of our work, we meet people who are absolutely petrified. They have these beliefs about their presentations, their performances, and when you can see at the end result, once you've coached them, and they just go, "Oh my God, I can speak confidently. I can speak with impact. Oh my God, I didn't know I could do this." And that's the real cool thing. But before we tap into that, because there's loads of listeners that will take a lot from this episode about using this in their business or in their life, about how they can communicate with more impact or make it fun to either show up on camera, stage, whatever. You have a very incredible story as well of how you got there. And also, whenever I get guests onto the show for the listeners here, I always send a little form that kind of gives a bit of info about the guest. And you put something which is absolutely amazing. I've done a bit of research on this as well, which is brilliant. But you have a very famous dad, and you've also done something as well, really cool, with Dame Judi Dench as well. Tell us a little bit, Paul Weston, and who is your father, I should say, and Dame Judi Dench.
Well, Paul Weston is famous in his own world. And certainly in my world, he's quite famous too. He's a stuntman, has been a stuntman and stunt coordinator, second unit director or I don't know, well, since back in the 60s, really, since I was a little girl. So he's worked on lots and lots of films, and it's been quite interesting to have a stuntman as a father. And it was something that when I was a child, if people would ask me what my dad did for a living, I was always told not to tell them, because somehow they would think I was making it up, or I was trying to be, I was lying and trying to, make something of myself. So I spent a lot of years kind of trying to hide what he did, because as soon as you told them, my dad's a stuntman, they weren't interested in anything else. They wanted to hear the stories. What's he done? What's he been in? Who's he met? All of those things. But now I love to talk about the fact that my dad is a stuntman. Yeah. He's really cool, and he's still stunting. He's still out there working at the ripe old age of 82, which he would hate for me to tell anybody how old he was. But yeah, no, I'm very, very proud of him. And he is a fantastic storyteller.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And so I think now when he goes on jobs now, or people employ him, it's really just to get him so they can sit around and listen to the stories.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and lots of James Bond films, isn't there? I think Skyfall is one of his biggest things as well, if I remember doing my research right. Well, he's done lots, hasn't he? Lots and lots.
He
of
has.
Stuff,
I mean, he was a sort of a bit player really in Skyfall. He was the stunt coordinator for The Living Daylights and one other, I think. So yeah, and Star Wars. He's done a few. And
wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I know Richard here who'll be listening to this. He'll be a big fan of that, 'cause he's a big James Bond fan. So, Jackie, also, so the second thing as well is something that's led you to this point, obviously, about the Dame Judi Dench thing at the RSC. Tell us a little bit about that experience. That's quite interesting.
Well, as you said earlier, I was a fashion designer. I trained in fashion and textiles and ended up in what I would say was the rag trade end of the fashion business, and it was horrible. I mean, I should have been an actor. I should have gone to drama school, but I was completely, like lots of people are, put off by my careers teacher. Absolutely said to me, "No, you don't want to be an actor. What else can you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm not bad at art." And so I ended up going to art school, which was great. I loved art and I love fashion. But the business end of it is not very creative. It's not much fun. It's very cutthroat, competitive, and which is just not me. So I left after about 5 years of designing for the high street. So I was, I had clothes in Miss Selfridge, Topshop, H&M, all of those sort of high street end shops. And a friend of mine who I went to fashion college with had, again, like me, been through fashion and ended up not particularly enjoying it. And she went to the Royal Shakespeare Company at the Barbican in London to work in the wardrobe department. And so when I was really unhappy in my work, I'd left a job. She said, "Come along and do some dressings, just casual work. It'll sort of tide you over kind of thing." And as soon as I walked through the doors at the Barbican, the RSC, I just felt at home. I think I just kind of went, I found my tribe. I just felt so comfortable. And one of the shows, I was a dresser in the pit. at the Barbican. And I don't know if you've ever been there. You're far too young to even remember the Royal Shakespeare Company being there. But obviously their main house was the big theatre. That's where all the big shows were on. But in the pit, they did all the small shows. So it was in not quite the round. It was sort of an apron, audience on three sides, very, very small. I can't even remember how many it seated. But that's where they did the more off the wall stuff, the sort of more alternative shows. And Judi Dench was in there playing in a play called The Gift of the Gorgon. And like all the actors at the Royal Shakespeare Company, there were no stars. So we had a girls' dressing room, a boys' dressing room, and usually ended up as sort of a younger boys' dressing room. I don't know why, there was always more boys. And I was dressing the girls. So Judi Dench was in my dressing room. Wow. And she was fabulous, as you would imagine. She was just as you would imagine her to be. She was lovely, great stories, a great laugh. She was always telling jokes and playing pranks, and yeah, she did that. That was it. And I had a fantastic time there. And it was while I was there that I realised that the acting was I should try it. If I didn't do it, then I would really regret it. So from there, I went to drama school.
What was it about the acting then that made you come alive and go, yeah, this is what I need to do?
God, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't know if it was anything in particular, but it's almost innate. And I think we all have that with something. There's something in all of us that makes us excited. And I don't know whether it's the storytelling part of it or just the interest that I have in people and human nature. Yeah. And what motivates people. Yeah, and I mean, it was what I did in the playground as an 8-year-old. I would gather all my friends together, whether they liked it or not, and I'd say, right, we're putting on a play, and we'd make up a story. So every play time during the week, I would direct and write and star in, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
Play, whatever that might be, and then the teacher in that particular year would allow us to perform it on a Friday afternoon. And so that's what I did. I did it at home where I lived. I can remember putting on plays in the sort of the little circle of flats where I lived and invite an audience, and I charged them 10p, I think I charged them to come and watch. And then I can remember taking it to what we'd made to the local children's home, which must have been so embarrassing, really, and said, we put on a play, this is for you, kind of thing. So yeah, it's just something I've always done, and I don't know why that is. I don't think anyone's ever asked me why.
Interesting. It's a funny thing because I guess for me, in a similar context, there's something that's so magical about, pardon that pun there, but in a theatre, backstage, seeing what the audience isn't seeing, and for me, there's this smell, there's this, there's the dust, that there's just the trapdoors. I mean, one of the biggest things when we went to New York was to go to Radio City and to do the tour of the stage, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I don't think Danielle was as amazing as I was, but it was just this feels like I could be here all day. And so I know how you feel there. It's hard to put into words what that is. But, yes. I absolutely, I kind of echo that as well. So, yeah. Well, great. So, okay. So, we've obviously come from the doing the art, obviously careers advisor, telling us all the bad things that we, really should do. We need Jake Richings on here. So people can go back to listen to the Jake Richings episode, which is about how to find a career you love. So you've come on through to this. You've come on and started doing costume designing, fashion designing. You're now helping or working at the RSC. So then what led to that point where I believe you started to watch the actors on stage and go, I can do this, or I could do it better than them maybe. Well, what happened there, and what was that spark that's then led on to where you are now? Yeah,
I mean, I can there's two stories, really. I can remember standing in the pit. Where is it like, a proscenium arch theatre where, you've got the audience all out front and you've got the wings. In the pit, there were VOMs. So these sort of corridors that sort of came down between the audience. There was just literally a curtain, and then you stepped out into the space. You didn't even step onto the stage, you stepped into the space. And I can remember standing behind the curtains, like literally peering through at a couple of young actors whose who have gone on. Well, one of them certainly, Emily. Oh no, I'm going to embarrass myself by not remembering her name now. But just listening to them and thinking, I could do that. I could absolutely do that. And then I was dressing an actor called Toby Stevens. I do remember his name. And he had a scene, and we were doing it. It was a tech rehearsal, so there was no audience in. They were just going through the motions for the lighting and the sound and all of those things. And as you say, that's what I loved. I loved that backstage kind of, the technical side of it is, blocking it and putting it all, going through the paces. And I had a quick change with this actor, and so I'm sitting in the auditorium watching him roll around under a sheet with an actress pretending to have sex. I mean, and they were really going for it. I mean, you couldn't see them, but the noises, it was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. I mean, just how do you do that? Yeah. So he came off stage for a quick change, and I said to him, how do you do that without just cringing? What is it? How do you sort of, with everybody watching you? And he said, well, if you don't believe what you're doing, then the audience won't believe it either. And that for me was a real light bulb moment. That was a moment that was like, oh my God, that's what acting is. It's not about being you playing a character. It's about you being that character. And if you don't believe that you are that person, that character, then the audience won't believe you, because you will get embarrassed, you will stumble, you will kind of cringe and turn red and all of those things. And so for me, that was a moment that just was like, well, this is all of the apprehension that I had about being an actor and thinking that I couldn't do it and I wasn't good enough. It kind of just gave me an in. It gave me a way of thinking about characters and motivation and everything around acting, and the joy of just being somebody else. So rather than just playing somebody else, but to actually take on a character and become that character.
There's a power of escape there, isn't there?
Yeah,
I feel it when I perform, because I'm a character. It's like a light switch goes on, and it's almost like an anchor. As soon as that suit jacket comes on, it's almost like as if I'm a different person, because I'm not the same person walking around the supermarket or walking down the street. I'm a probably slightly dialed down, dull version. I'm just Ricky. I'm Ricky throughout, no matter what. But there's this slightly accentuated, dialed up to 11, Ricky, and you can see it in my posture in that. But it is that escape, because for that moment, I mean, we've talked about this before, this idea of flow state,
yes,
like a 45-minute keynote that feels like 5 minutes, or a 2-hour magic performance that feels like half hour. It's just magical, isn't it? You can't, it's really hard to explain this to people who haven't felt that, but there's that buzz and that adrenaline of just being someone else. And for me, my character's quite cheeky. I'm quite a cheeky person. I'll probably say things that I probably wouldn't say, in real life, but I can get away with it. Like, so Jackie, this sounds really rude, probably wasn't going to explain this, right? But I was comparing something at a wedding a few weeks ago, and it's a big showstopper. We call it a big showstopper. So I've got this big mic stand. I'm on the mic. I've commanded the room. I've been there all day, so everybody knows my character, that kind of thing. And I'm just doing this trick, and this guy at the wedding breakfast, because at the wedding breakfast people are quite drunk, and he just starts talking, and I just turned to him and went, "Oi, shh, I'm performing you. Come on!" And everybody laughed. Now it sounds like a really rude thing, but because I built that rapport with everybody in that character, it worked. And I walked away from it and thought, Jesus Christ, that's quite rude, isn't it? I would never say that to someone. But because it just worked and it fitted, and they all laughed, and it kind of played off. But but there's that wonderful moment. I love that word, that it's kind of like an escape. But the thing that you really inspired me there to think about is that whole belief thing. My mentor, John Solhill, unfortunately he's not around anymore, but in the Magic Circle, he said the same thing. Well, he said two things. He said, one thing, you should always smile as if your grandma is at the back of the room. So whenever you perform, big smile. But the second thing is, he said that you need to believe that the magic is happening. So if you're doing a trick where, let's say, like a card visually transforms into something else, act as if it's really happening in your hand, not just a da-da, it's done. It's, really, what would that feel like and look like that? And that just changed everything for me in my whole performance, in my whole speaking career. It's the idea of actually believing in what we're saying. But I guess that there's a lot of people that that don't put that effort in because they're just recycling garbled stuff that they're told to perform or to present when actually they need to really get into it, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's well, I mean, you touched on that, really building rapport and building the trust. And once you've done that, then you've got that audience on your side. And you can only do that as much as you're saying that the character is an accentuation of you. It is still you.
Yeah.
And so when I work with people, it's really about finding who they are. And it's the same when I was teaching actors, when I was working with adults in a space, and just getting them to remove all of the baggage that we come into any situation with. My careers teacher telling me that I couldn't be an actor, people telling other people that they can't paint or draw, don't be ridiculous, you're not creative, all of those things. And then we go through secondary school and we're kind of crushed into this little ball and bound up with all sorts of ropes that kind of we come out the other end thinking we should be this person. This is what society is expecting of us. And we crush all of these things, all of our creativity. I literally read something today that as children, like preschool, 98% of preschool children are creative and genius level. Yeah. And then as they go through life, that percentage goes down and down and down until, you come out the other end and there's only like 2% of people that are actually creative and genius. Yeah. And so what I do in a room with people is to really get them to play. So they drop all of that baggage so that they find out what their story is and what makes them, what were they doing when they were 8 years old that gave them that thrill, and find that. And what is it on your journey that you have learned from that has, and I have found, because I also have a podcast, which hopefully you will be on very soon. And I love to ask people what they wanted to be when they grew up, because I've found talking to people that they come back to that. It doesn't matter what journey they've been on, especially entrepreneurs or people working for themselves in business. Yeah. They come back to that, what that passion is, and they find that, but they still are kind of bound by this expectations and what they think they should be. And so in the process of working with me, I kind of use the acting training to really get rid of that baggage, get rid of who they are, so that they can show themselves authentically and be confident. Yeah. Because a lot of it is actually just giving people permission.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be themselves.
Well, this is, yeah. Oh, sorry, Jackie, go on.
No, I was going to say, improvisation is another one of those words that if you say to people, okay, we're going to improvise, they go,
yeah, yeah. Oh my God, yeah, like a comic on a stage kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not, we improvise every single day. I'm improvising right now, as are you. And that's all it is. It's kind of making things up as you go along, opening your mouth, not knowing the response that you're going to be getting, and just being confident enough in your own story to be able to talk without fear that there's going to be tumbleweed coming back.
Yeah.
Because you have got something interesting to say, because it's your story.
Hey, it's Ricky here, and I'm just pausing the episode really quickly to remind you that you can watch video episodes with all guests, receive bonus behind-the-scenes content and extra episodes, all for as little as just the price of a cup of coffee. You can do this in the Unlocked Patreon community, but rather than me tell you why you should join, here's one of our Patreon members and what they have to say.
Why do I think being a patron of the Unlocked podcast is awesome? Ricky. That's it. I've known Ricky for a very long time. We worked together back in the day at Argos. He's always been supportive, engaging, and one hell of a magician. Still don't know how he does half that stuff. This podcast is everything that Ricky is all about, and being a patron, I get to support him in this journey, and I get to learn some really useful stuff along the way. We get some exclusive content as patrons, and it's so worth missing out on a coffee each month. So come and join us. You won't regret it.
So just like Ant, to get involved, head to patreon.com/the Unlocked Podcast, or click the link in the show notes and come and join the fun. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, it's so important. And there's so many things I'd love to discuss in a second about the power of play and the power of improv. And if you're happy to, Jackie, I would love to do a little improv section with you. Yeah, I've got a little game with you if you want. Fancy doing it in a second. But yeah, I love that whole idea of it. Yeah, mentions this before about the idea of a lined paper. So holding us up to the camera here for Jackie. So, as kids, you're not taught to be playful. You just do it. You just play, be creative. And, as soon as then when you go to school, you start learning how to read and write. You're told to keep within the lines. And then you do that, and then you conform, and then you now need to get a career. No, you couldn't be a magician, Ricky. No, you need to be a lawyer or a doctor or a policeman. What? Why? Why can't I be this? So yeah, I love that idea, and I love that you're now kind of bringing that play out. So let's talk about this then: the power to speak. The business, the podcast. Obviously, tell us a little bit about the business. So you started the business because of this wonderful experience of working in art at the RSC, dressing famous actresses, and now you're obviously helping other people to create powerful, impactful presentations, communication. So tell us a little bit about that work, then what you're doing. You've briefly mentioned it already, but what could listeners expect from if they wanted to contact you about this?
I use my acting training, really, and that's how I came to this. When I came into lockdown, I was a drama teacher, I suppose. I was running workshops for adults. I used to work with kids after school, run youth theatres and things. But, my days of Saturday morning, 30 kids bouncing off walls is long gone. So, but working with adults was quite a revelation, to get, and that's where it started, is that I thought, why can't I get a group of adults into a space and do with them exactly what I do with the 10-year-olds, get them playing games, get them doing those drama exercises, get them improvising, making it up as they go along, and just really building confidence. So even with the kids' classes, the youth theatre, I never worked with anybody to make them an actor. I worked with them to give them all the skills to be able to communicate confidently. And if they wanted to use that in an acting world, then obviously that's fantastic. But what interested me more was when the adults were coming up to me at the end of a 2-hour session and saying that was like therapy. Yeah. And that was really quite powerful for me to think that actually this is really beneficial to everybody. And so when lockdown hit and I was at home and the workshops had stopped because all the venues had closed, I was in Zoom rooms with small business owners, with entrepreneurs. I started the podcast because I wanted to talk about creativity, because in the rooms that I was talking in and speaking to people in, people were very kind of unsure of what creativity was and assumed that they weren't. And so I just wanted to talk to people about how we are all creative. Creativity is about problem solving and risk taking. And, an entrepreneur, anybody that runs their own business, are, believe me, incredibly creative. So talking to people about their businesses, I could feel that people were reticent about stepping out in front of a camera or on a stage. And it's not just about, stepping on a stage and talking to hundreds of people. It's, people are unconfident of turning up in a networking space on a Zoom call. And so I started working with people on how they can build their confidence to get on a screen or to stand up in front of their audience. And then now being in a world of people that are speaking professionally and people that want to speak professionally, I love to use the acting training to really find the motivation of why they need to speak. What is that talk going to be? How am I going to help them get to performance? So I work with them on the content as well as the actual physicality of their voice. When I started, it was all about, this is how you breathe. This is how you support your voice. This is how you use your diaphragm. These are your organs of articulation, and all of those things. Whereas the more that I worked with people, that is only part of it. That's a very small part of getting to performance, because actually what it's about is the story, and what it's about is the content. And I find that once people have the basis of that talk, once they've got like a 20 minutes that they can tell their journey in and get their message across. And it's not about dumping all of your story out there and saying, I need sympathy. Haven't I had it tough? This is not about putting all that stuff out there. This is finding stories that are relevant to your business, relevant to what you do, and that will be relevant to the audience that you're talking to. So I always start with, who is the audience? Who is it that you are speaking to? Why do they care? Why are they going to listen?
Yeah.
And once people have found that and they're confident in that, then all of the physicality or the voice, the body language, everything just comes naturally.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And it's so important, because I think there's a risk to businesses by not investing into this, really, because, and this is not me plugging this. I've never purchased any of Jackie's coaching or any of her products, but I know this from my work in the Confident Club of what the impact that can have in terms of selling to people, building rapport, communicating to people, showing up on camera. There is that real importance of, being playful, being creative, knowing your journey and knowing the hero's journey, which I think is fantastic. It's one of the structures that we like to share as well. And I remember, because I know you're a big fan of Sir Ken Robinson. Oh, yes. So Steve McDermott from the Confident Club was really good pals with Sir Ken, and he once asked Ken and said, give me some advice on that. And he said to him that he likes to go up on stage with a tune in mind, but he's prepared to do a little jazz every now and then. And I love that idea of that, there is a structure, format. We've got the hero's journey, the past, present, the future, and now there's a little bit of improv in there, because I think Steve said one of the greatest things to me, which is like, if you watch like Dragon's Den, you'll see these people going, "Oh, hello, dragons." And they're trying to remember all of their speech and their pitch that they've written down and that. And there's a real fine difference between being completely slick, completely winging it, and that sweet spot in the middle of having some structure, the hero's journey or a format, whatever, but with a little bit of improv in between. I love that. So
no, absolutely. No, Ken Robinson, absolute hero of mine. And to watch his TED Talks, he is just the master of that. The story is there, the actual, the fundamentals of the message that he's going to be sharing. In fact, I put a post out yesterday with a Maya Angelou quote that says, people won't remember what you did, what you wrote, but they will what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. Yes. And you get that with Ken Robinson, because he tells that story, but he takes you on a journey, And there's another quote that I heard, which is memorize to improvise. And you have to be so well rehearsed and so well practiced and know your story. And if you're telling your story, then you can't forget that. That's in you. You're never going to forget those lines. Yeah. So it's not about memorizing a script. It's about being so well rehearsed and knowing your stuff so well that you can jazz.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can riff, you can go off in tangents, but you will come back. Yeah. To that, because you know it so well. That's
right. Yeah, some of the best stories I've ever seen are like conversations. It's like you're listening to someone sitting around a campfire, and not some. I mean, I have to be careful what I say, because some listeners probably listen to this. I have done some speaking training in the past, and it's very structured and very slick, that it's too obvious that there's something going on here. Where I walked away from it going, "Oh, okay. This looks a bit weird." You could see it, and it didn't feel natural. And I think Steve once gave me some feedback that he could see that my brain was trying to work out what was the next part of that structure, when it should just come across natural and having fun. Well, so lots of things then to share then in the Power to Speak. Obviously, you've got the podcast as well, which we'll put a link into the show notes as well. And lots of great things there is what actors and actresses can share. One of the things I think is about physical communication. There's this there's a presupposition in NLP, which is that you cannot not communicate. We are always communicating, body language and stuff. But what about physical techniques? What kind of physical techniques can we learn from experience of acting and being an actress? What can we use there in terms of communicating?
Oh, well, I would just say loosen up. Just, before, if you come and work with me, you have to do a warm up. That's obligatory. So physically, we loosen up all of the muscles of the face, all of the muscles. I mean, we hold so much tension in our shoulders. You ask somebody to breathe in and they'll go like, the shoulders will go up. So it's all about just relaxing, leaving a nice softness in your knees. So you're not rigid. And again, it comes through once you've done that warm up, once you've sort of shaken off all of the crap that you've brought in from the day that you just had, the warm up, make sure that you shake out everything, right? And I start from the top of the head. So you just start with circles, and then you do the shoulders, and then you do the arms, and then you do the hips and the legs and ankles and all of that. And then you do the face, because we've got so many muscles in our face. So just keep, moving like you're chewing or you're a cow chewing grass, and just get all this. You'll feel the muscles moving all around your nose, all around your mouth, in your jaw. And then once you've done that, you can walk onto a stage with a little bit more, you're not so stiff, you're not so uptight. So that's one physical thing that you can do that will help. But a lot of it does come from the confidence in what you're saying, because once you are confident in sharing that message, that physicality will come naturally.
Yeah.
Don't move if you don't have to. If I'm working with actors on a stage, or if you're watching actors on a stage that really are not very good actors, you'll see them speak, and then they know that they've got to get to the other side of the stage because there's a piece of equipment coming on. But there's no motivation. There's no reason for their character to move. So it's like they almost come out of character and they walk to the other side of the stage. They stop and they carry on. So you break that concentration. And it's the same if you're being yourself on a stage. Let the story and just become your physicality. Yeah. So if you feel like you need to move your hands, move your hands. I worked with a guy who'd kind of been forced to be the face of the business YouTube channel. Oh, wow. He had all the knowledge. He was fantastic, but he just froze completely in front of the camera. And he put I don't know if he put his hands behind his back or he put them in his pocket. I can't remember. It's like, well, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm not allowed to use my hands. I said, well, who said who said you're not allowed to use your hands? So move your hands if you want to. Yeah. Don't be distracting. If you start swaying from side to side or, jumping around on the spot, that is going to be distracting. So anchor yourself in a spot, but do so confidently, do so in a relaxed way. This is about you and the story. You don't want to be distracting by making awkward movements, but don't think about it. Don't overthink it.
Yes, agreed. Yeah. I often find, I think that, I wonder how TED talkers, if you're a person that is moving around the stage quite a lot, I've seen a lot of people do this where they're just pacing back and forth and you just feel like you're sick because you just go, what's going on? Like how they go from that, because great examples there of sitting in standing in a red spot, and commanding the room, with kind of no motion at all, really, just a little bit every now and then. Yeah, I love that. And that's I am a great fan of TED Talks, and I think anybody that's looking to do a talk, go and watch some. Find some stuff that you're interested in. Find the topics that you want to talk about, and see how other people do it. Because the visuals are another big thing that I love with TED Talks, and are a big thing when I work with people. Is they feel like they need to put their talk on a slide, and it's like, well, no. People don't want to read that. Again, it's a distraction. People don't want to read what it is that you're saying. They want to listen to what you're saying. So forget words. A visual is that. It's visual. So find something that's relevant. The visual should be there to accentuate a point. Not to make the point. You are there to make the point. So that's it. Well, do you know what, Jackie? I'm going to share this, and this is like a world exclusive. Although the time that this episode comes out will be after my wedding, hopefully, as long as Danielle turns up and walks down the aisle. But there's lots of parallels here. Maybe we'll do another episode on this as well, because I see so many weddings and so many speeches, which is the same thing. Where people have just Googled the night before, what do I say? And it's the classics. The cake is in tears, or doesn't she scrub up well? And it's like, this is like the most special part of your day. Why wouldn't you want to put some effort in and just make this a really exciting moment? And I ask people, I say, how are you feeling? I'm really nervous. Oh, would you like some tips that could make you feel really excited for this? Oh, yes, please. Yeah. So to give you this, a world exclusive, right, Jackie? So I'm actually going to be using, so I'm saying this is now past tense, future tense, because we're recording this end of August, wedding's in a week's time. I'm actually using my 9-month-old daughter's book called The Lion Inside, and I'm going to read it as a prop during my speech. So you might see this behind me on the top of me. So I use mind maps for whenever I do keynotes. That was taught from the Confidence
I do
Club.
that too.
Love doing mind maps to remember all my stuff, because then that gives me, like we said, permission to have some sort of structure, but be prepared to go off and jazz a little bit. But one of the things that I'm going to do is use a prop. So I'm not going to have pages and pages of notes that are all tucked and sweaty in my pocket or anything like that. I'm going to have my mind map rehearsed in my head, and then I'm going to use this prop because I can then go into character. I can put the lion's voice on, the mouse's voice. And the reason I'm using that as a prop, as a visual aid, is because there's such an important message about this little lion trying to find his voice. And without kind of giving away too much, because there might be some listeners that might be at the wedding, but it's the idea that how Danielle makes me feel on that day. You know, I've probably got to speak a bit more quiet. She might hear me in the other room. But yeah, so the idea of it is that there's this lovely line in there, which is like, forever is such a long time to feel small. And there's such a powerful moment in that. And no one does that. And I thought, why don't we make this fun? Let's make this fun and, you know, visual. It's not just a microphone, boring technique of, you know, I went to one earlier on this year. Bless him, the groom, he stood up and says, I really hate public speaking. I don't want to do this. So I'm just going to say thanks for coming, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye. I didn't even say how beautiful his bride was. Bless him. Bless him. So, you know, but there are so many things here, you know, even as a magician and as an actor, actress, that, you know, there's lots of things we can share. So I love this. Well, Jackie, we could probably talk about this all day. I 100% believe in what you're doing as well, because it fits with what we do at the Confident Club. There's so much value in investing in things like yourself to add that impact. You know, I get comments on social media about, you look really confident, Ricky, you do this. And it's just strategies and tools and tips and experience used from mentor, from theatres and stuff like that. Yeah. But there's so many things that we can pass on to people. But I'd love to play a quick little improv game with you for about 30 seconds. And then we'll wrap it up with some tips of where to find you, how they can find the podcast, and what advice we can give people. So I don't know if you've ever done this one, Jackie. It's one of my favourite ones. I've done this a couple of times in the Yellow Tuxedo networking group. But it's... we do this in Confident Club too. It's just a simple conversation, but it's all in numbers. Nobody knows what the conversation is going to be, but me and you, we're going to count up to 20. I'll go first. I might do a couple of numbers. You might do one number, two numbers, but between us, we're going to count to 20, but we're going to just do it in an improv style, and it's just a conversation. But nobody knows what the conversation is about. Are you ready, Jackie?
I am.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
4, 5, 6.
7, 8, 9.
10.
11.
12, 13.
14.
15. 16.
17.
18.
19, 20. Thank you. Cheers. There you go. I loved it. That's one of my favourite ones. We loved in that because it just gets people just to go, what's going on? And sometimes I'll say this to a group. I'll say, right, we'll just count to 20. And they get so excited, they just carry on. I just let them, just let them get on with it. Thank you, Jackie, for permission to play there with me. I appreciate that. But Jackie, so obviously, lastly, I guess, as some tips for people listening about this who might be really interested, thinking, I really need to start making, you know, some impactful communication presentations, or I need to show up a bit more on camera. What is one of the simplest pieces of advice? We've shared about breathing, you know, posture. What would be a good piece of advice for someone to start with about being more confident in presentations or showing up on camera?
Done is better than perfect is a big one, because you just need to get started. And if you do that just for you in the beginning, that's absolutely fine. Nobody needs to see it, but just get started, do something. It might be that, you know, you'll do something on your phone and it will always, I've still got videos on my phone, or, you know, bits of video on my phone that never see the light of day, but it's just a way of getting started. The warm-up is always a good one too, that people don't think about. They think it's a bit I don't know, a bit actory to kind of do a warm up before you step on in front of anything. But everybody does. Anybody that has something big to do will take that time. So an athlete, you'll see an athlete breathe before they make that big leap or whatever it is that they're doing. You just need to give yourself that time. Give yourself 5 minutes to do some gentle warm up, some breathing, some belly breathing. So when you deep breathe into your diaphragm, that will certainly help. And just get started, I think.
Yeah, love that. Great tip. And Jackie, one of the questions I ask every guest is about the idea of how do we unlock the best version of ourselves? What do you do to unlock the best version of yourself?
I start most days with a 20 minutes yoga, and that really sets me up for the day. Now, I know not everybody is going to be able to do that, but I think if you can give yourself 20 minutes of your day just to chill, whether that's meditation, sitting in a dark room, whatever that is for you, gardening, cooking, anything, just find something that really puts you into that sort of relaxed state. Because I think that really, I walk as well. So yeah, if I can get time to walk, I don't have music on, I don't do anything. It's just space for me in my head.
Yeah, I think it's really important, isn't it? Especially now, I think the age that we're in, I'm finding I'm scrolling endlessly at the minute. And I need those moments to just be clear thinking, away from it. Yeah, love that. Very powerful. Thank you. Well, Jackie, love to have this conversation. I think we could talk about this for a lot more than this, but how can people find out more about what you do or even how to find the podcast?
Well, I am. My website is www.powertospeak.co.uk. I am on LinkedIn as Jackie Goddard, Power to Speak. So come and find me there. The podcast is on YouTube. So there's a podcast, Power to Speak, the podcast on YouTube channel, as well as on all of the other Audible platforms, Apple, Spotify, all of those. So pick your favorite. Come and find me there. I think that's it. I do have a Facebook page too. That's Power to Speak UK.
Brilliant. Well, Jackie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And, there is a link actually we'll put in the show notes because I believe there is something that you've offered, which is, I believe, I wrote this down as well. I should have had this. I'll delete this bit out. How to impact, influence and inspire your audience PDF.
There is. Yeah. Go to the website to sign up for that. And that's a free... It's a 12-page PDF that talks about, like we have, breathe. So it's the 3: believe, breathe, and be prepared. So just gives you some tips and techniques on how to get started.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you, Jackie. And we'll put a link as well in the show notes for people to find that as well. But Jackie, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck with the wedding.
Thanks, Jackie. Thank you, Jackie, for coming on to the show. I loved this episode. I'm a massive fan of helping people to become more confident and to step out from their audience and share their messages. So thank you for coming on and sharing all of your wonderful expertise and magical moments. Now, if you want to find out more about Jackie's work and how she can help you, head to the link in the show notes. And also, you can listen to her podcast, Power to Speak, on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for listening to this episode. As always, a huge, huge thank you to the patron supporters of this podcast. Thank you, Anthony Howe, Jasmine Barnes, Chloe Wilmot, Sarah Kay, Sherry Brenton, Steve McDermott, and Chris Lovett, and Rory Barnes. We really do appreciate your support for getting this podcast out to the masses. If you did enjoy this episode, then head over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, leave us a review or leave us a rating. It helps this podcast get shared to more people around the world. But without further ado, thank you for listening to this episode and good luck unlocking the best version of yourself. I'll join you on another episode of Unlocked next week. Goodbye.